welcome to Transformation Today. This is the first episode of a new series, and today my guest is Elly Kusters. Welcome, Elly. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what you currently do?
I'm a recruiter, just like you, and I've been in the industry for 15 years. I guess I fell into it as well a little bit by coincidence because, I had a role before in international sales, came back to the Netherlands after 5 years abroad, and literally didn't know what to do. And of course, recruitment is one of those jobs that you kind of go into, but then either you love it or you hate it. And ultimately, I did love it. So 15 years down the line, I'm still really passionate about it. But mainly, I guess because I really just love to speak to people and kind of get a little bit of insight on what they really, what drives them. So that's a little bit where I stand. I currently have my own agency with 3 partners, started 4 years ago. And literally just doing operational recruitment still.
Yeah, and we both worked for the same large international company, and I left I think 6 years ago, maybe almost 7.
Yeah.
And you 4 years ago. What did we? I don't remember that we used any AI back then. Do you?
Nothing. No. I mean, I remember we were literally just looking at paper CVs. It was already a big deal when we went paperless. So that was a big shock. No, everything was literally calling people, doing the transcripts on paper. It was a lot of face-to-face, which was also a really great thing. But there were no tools whatsoever, no.
No. And I remember we had all those team assistants that did a lot of manual work for us as well.
Yeah. I remember transcribing stuff took us ages, and that was really part of our daily jobs to really just transcribe all the interviews that we were doing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely been improvements since then.
Yeah, and what do you use in terms of AI currently in your daily business?
Well, I guess we do have a system called Loxo, which is a CRM, and it also has the option to really sort of scan the full internet on type of profile. So it works a little bit like LinkedIn, I guess, but it also goes above LinkedIn and further down into people's profiles. So I guess we do use it as a tool, but it's definitely not our main tool. I guess it's a way for us to really get more, let's say more candidates into our pipeline and to get a little bit more potential candidates. But I think what we do, we use that as one tool, and then we definitely also still use our personal network to really get the best candidates out of both worlds.
Yeah. I myself, I'm a big fan of transcription tools. I started.
Oh my God, I need to start learning that because I'm still doing it myself.
Yeah, you saw my post where I had a concussion, and that made it very difficult for me to screen work. And my transcription tool really saved the day because I could still have nice conversations with people, and then my tool just remembered everything that was discussed in detail, and I can just ask it questions. It's super handy, and all the interview notes can be automatically in the system, which is fantastic. I'm experimenting with a new one now called Blue Dots. So there are several tools on the market that I think are interesting. And what do you use? Like there's a lot of like candidate selection AI tools as well. Do you use those to go through your applicants, or do you think that requires looking at manually?
Yeah, the thing is that we do get, so as I mentioned, we do use it to get candidates into the pipeline. So they will all be in our shortlist, but then I definitely have to go through them manually. I mean, I know there's tools that do perfect matching based on all these keywords, but I think, what we've both learned after 15 years in the business, sometimes you miss a lot of the actual great candidates because maybe they don't match the keywords, but they've done something really interesting that you remember was also interesting for the client, but wasn't in the job spec. Like ultimately, the best selection is being made by someone who can have a really holistic view of a candidate and not just keywords. Like that is the basic stuff that you can teach a junior. But I think if you're an experienced recruiter, you will pick up on so many more things. So we use it to get a pipeline, but definitely everything is done manually to really select the right ones.
Yeah, and I sometimes discover like hidden gems in the candidates that are auto-archived by AI, and then the thing is that they probably auto-archive with a lot of competitors as well. So this is just very good candidates that are it's perfect for us. And what you said also triggered something in me. You said like it's basically what AI is doing is comparable to what junior recruiters do.
Great, yeah.
Would you like recommend a junior recruiter that wants to learn, because there's a risk that their jobs will be replaced with AI?
Exactly. Yeah. I think this whole conversation obviously is a little bit based on like, why will we still be needed, right? Because everything
Mm.
can be done by AI nowadays. And I thoroughly believe there's a huge benefit. Like, things can be quicker, you can have a broader scope, you save a lot of time. And I mean, there will be a lot of things that could be done. But ultimately, what makes a good recruiter is exactly that. Like, it's the experience, having spoken to thousands and thousands of candidates, having met and seen the insides of thousands and thousands of companies, type of cultures and teams. And what we do is we kind of find the right person, not the right CV. And like, I actually know statistics on successful hires have nothing to do with experience and has everything to do with personality, cultural fit, communication, and none of that is traceable by IA. So I guess, yeah, what I want to say is, like, you can teach like a junior, oh, ask these questions, check on these, specific words in the CV, but that is literally what a machine could be doing, and that is not added value. So I think overall, for us as really senior recruiters, there will be a need for sure as the last kind of human filter for, yeah, people to be
Yeah.
presented to, into companies, let's say.
Yeah, but then again, back to my question. Let's say I'm a junior recruiter now, or I want to start in recruitment, have no experience.
Yeah.
What can I do to make myself to make myself stand out from AI?
Yeah, I mean, I would say try to make as many personal contacts as you can. Like, that is the only way. Like, speak to as many people, build up your personal network.
Yeah.
But as essentially, yeah, there's hardly a difference.
No, and maybe also like go to meet a lot of clients face to face. And there's a lot of like this recruitment companies that do mostly work via the phone, and then it's very difficult to assess if a candidate has a cultural fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, you just sparked another thing that I thought about is, like, how candidates are super frustrated about LinkedIn applications because they literally go into some limbo. You press the button, you never hear back. And even candidates that have a really great profile for a certain job get automated rejections, because I think that's also what happens in LinkedIn, right? If you send your CV, it's completely matched just by keywords. And then obviously there's all these candidates that try to like game the system and put all these keywords in their CVs, and they're not the right people. So I think there's a lot of it is really lost, and it looks all fancy and it goes really quick, but is that going to be your best hire in the end? And is that not a very frustrating system for candidates as well?
It is frustrating for candidates, but also for us, because what I noticed is that when I post a job and it's like a really popular one, I get like so many of the same automated message that's sent via LinkedIn. They call it AI, but it just changes a few key things about the candidate.
Yeah.
And then if I get the same message about 20 times a day, I'm not very likely to speak with people. I'd rather have them sending their own written email with maybe some flaws in it that triggers more than getting the same message over and over and over again.
And what would you say is, like, if you get a generated message from AI, do you immediately recognize it as it being an IA CV or?
Yeah, I think, my friend who's looking for a job asked me that as well. And I think what he also discovered, if you make a CV with ChatGPT, that the if you do like how do you call it, minus the like if you want to like do a row of traits, like it's slightly longer in ChatGPT, so you have to change those things. Bullets.
Yes.
It doesn't do a bullet, but it does I think an arrow or something. So those are little things that you have to like. That's already what you recognize, and I think it's a bit over the top sometimes as well.
The language is so extensive, it's very unneeded. So what would you like in terms of, I guess you get a lot of those messages, I get them a little bit less, but what would you recommend candidates to do if they really want to grab your attention, right? Because I guess they need to somehow differentiate themselves.
I think if someone is a really good match to the role, and that's all the requirements that are in there, I would always speak with them. So apply to roles that you're a good match to. Sadly, in this market, it's quite difficult to do something else. Or send me a message that you've clearly written yourself, explaining why you think you're a good match, then that would trigger me as well. And I've interviewed and introduced candidates that did that because it was such a nice message. But don't do the bulk. I don't think it works, and I think it will only frustrate you. So it will make the job search more difficult in the end and painful.
Yeah. And I would recommend on top of that, keep it super short.
Yeah.
You know, like the messages where they go back into my experience and their experience and why they're a match and how this could be potentially a relationship. I mean, I just want you to say, I get this sometimes, like people say, I just applied for this role. I would really love to speak to you about it. And that's it. And they just send that extra message. I already look a little bit at their CV on LinkedIn, and then I might look at their CV as well in the actual application. That is enough. Just that one message like, hey, I just applied, would love to speak to you.
Yeah. And what do you think of candidates that tweak the keywords in their CV based on what they think AI wants?
I mean, I guess if you want to actually get in front of a recruiter and they have to look at your CV, then that's a good way to get through the sort of loophole in the system. But ultimately, you know, there's no gain, because I will speak to you. I will see exactly what you've done, and I will immediately see that's just a front, right? So everyone in the industry nowadays looks super polished and perfect on CV. So the only way to really know if what's behind it is to have that personal conversation. And then people, well, if, as we say in Dutch, you fall to the mand.
Yeah.
You fall to the mand. Yeah, you fall through the basket. I mean, we immediately notice there's no match. Like that's it's not going to happen. And I guess, you know, just play your strengths. No, not everyone needs to be that perfect communicator and that super polished CV. Maybe you're like super good at something else, and that makes you really stand out again. So it is really the actual search for what makes me stand out. No, everyone has that perfect CV.
Yeah, and I think that's good, and that's what you have to bring across. And if you have to be strong, I think, as well in like a face-to-face meeting, because that's where people are lacking sometimes now.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, what do you think could other, like, I don't know if you think on the client side, there's also like a danger in terms of working with, I was thinking, for example, and I thought it was interesting about how IA actually learns from loop learning. Like if people in the company have a certain way of selecting people and selecting other people out, then the system learns. So sometimes it's also really, it creates kind of like this black box where you don't know what's happening, but there's actually a lot of underlying, maybe, you know, preconditions, or how do you say that? Like pre-concepts where people are just in the system already selected out and in based on like old, maybe bad format. So there's quite a lot of other negatives that you don't even think about that could also make, how do you say it? Yeah, the feedback loops, that there's biases included in it, basically.
Yeah, and what would you recommend to candidates that are now looking for a new role?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, because if you think, I don't know if you've noticed, but since the beginning of this year, the market has been quite, you know, unstable. I wouldn't say, but it has turned a little bit more
uncertain, and that makes people like, I want a new job now.
Also, there's been a lot of big companies that have made redundancies. I would say, from my perspective, there's a lot of really great candidates on the market that don't necessarily get a job really quickly. So they get very stressed out. And it's kind of, it doesn't really say anything about you as a person, but there might be other candidates just like you, or they are a little bit, you know, have a better fit with one company. So there's only one job and then they get that role. There's nothing else you can do than just keeping in touch with people. So I would say go to like industry events, keep speaking to the recruiters, try to really stay top of mind. Maybe also try to be a little bit more visible on LinkedIn. I guess that's always good. But it is really about the personal network. I wouldn't recommend anyone to just keep applying for every role out there. It's just really not beneficial. That role will come, but it typically comes through personal network. Because in the end, when people know you, that whole CV, it doesn't really matter. That's what we also know, right? We sometimes send people that might not have the perfect fit on CV, and we just say, speak to them, and we just know it's going to be love at first sight.
And the client will accept it because they know that you know them very well too.
Exactly. So and you can only make that judgment call because you know them. That's true.
Yeah, but then human contact is important for candidates, it's for us, and for clients as well. It's like AI can be helpful,
Yeah.
And it is sometimes very easy to if you want to make the draft of a job description, for instance, or check a contract, it's nice to be able to use
Absolutely.
AI.
Yeah.
But yeah. And you also have a company, yeah? And what you recommend to recruitment companies? Because I get a lot of like unsolicited emails from companies from other countries wanting to offer the services, and it's clearly also made with AI.
Yeah.
How is that? How is that for you? How is that for you?
Yeah. All the time. So I'm now being acquisitioned by obviously people selling me tools to make my recruitment process easier, or outreach. Obviously, a lot of that is what you see as well on sending CVs out, or sending messages out on group to clients to do my acquisition. And the thing is, we deliberately as a company want to stay small. And we've chosen to be so because what you hear is everything needs to be quicker, more volume. The process is being divided up by big agencies into sourcing, matching, sales managers, account managers. So in one recruitment process, you might speak to 4 or 5 different people, which is crazy. So I'm thinking we want to be small because we want to just be a partner for a few companies and really get to know them well. So we can also be a dedicated partner for real and do a lot because we understand them inside out. So for us, it's not interesting to use those tools to do mass emailing and mass acquisition, because that would go against our culture.
Yeah.
You know, that like if we want to say we're personal, but then send out 10,000 messages to get people in, what would that say about us? On the other hand, if you're by yourself and you're kind of interested in getting a lot of traction in the beginning, and it's more about volume, that could be a business model as well. It's not always just about the relationship. I think there's also segments of the markets that can be served by more transactional recruiters, when it's a little bit like more operational or specific skills. And I think if you're in that situation, you could potentially get a lot of exposure through these like outreach tools, but we definitely don't want to use those.
No, and I think like if I speak with our clients, like most of them get pissed off when they get a clearly AI generated outreach mail. So maybe
Absolutely.
the strategy that those companies are using is that 1% that is interested, that's enough, but it's not good for your name in the market. People will
Yeah.
remember and think you're annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really a little bit about your business model, but you do know this one. And indeed, if 1% says yes,
Yeah.
you do get, it is a money-making business potentially, if
Yeah.
you just keep going and going.
Yeah, but those are probably the same types of companies that just their business model is also sending out a lot of CVs and see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And I know those, I've heard about, for example, in my industry, we do a lot of interim as well. And I guess there is definitely also people, I've heard about this guy who does, who has a WhatsApp group, and he basically just asks if there's an interim need, put it in the WhatsApp group, and then he sends it out in another WhatsApp group with a lot of candidates, and he asks them to send their CV. So it's like the most efficient business model you could have. There is not a lot of interviewing happening. There's not a lot of personal relationship. You don't really know the client. You don't really know the candidate. But in some situations, it's actually quite okay because someone just needs to do a job for a couple of months. And if it's just, well, very technical, as I said, it doesn't matter in terms of personality, that could typically work, and you could have a cheaper business model there. I mean, there is definitely segments where it's super useful. I'm
Yeah.
just not in that type. I just really
No.
didn't want to be in that industry because I just don't enjoy it. I personally I'm really interested in having the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's why both of us started our own companies, because you wanted to do it your way and not like
Yeah,
mass way.
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And it's also, this is one of the things you always hear, how can you scale? How can you become bigger? And again, we don't have an interest in being bigger. We just want to be really good at what we do, really give out a good service. And also, I'm not interested in managing 10 people and just having to look at after how they are doing. I just prefer to do stuff myself because I know it's being done well,
Yeah.
instead of telling 10 juniors which questions they need to ask. That's not the kind of business I want to be in on a daily basis.
No, but that's what your thoughts when you start working, when you start in recruitment. That's your career development is through getting more people in your team, becoming a manager, becoming a director, etc., etc. So it's
Absolutely.
yeah.
And do you think there will be other tools out there that could be useful for you as a company? I mean, the transcription, once you mentioned, that could be super helpful, right?
Yeah. I also did some work with Google Gemini. which is used to be BART, and that is really good for digesting research results. So it's really good, yeah, to write scientific articles and get through conclusions after reading to a lot of details. So that is something that I would like to discover more, do a bit more with. I don't believe at the moment that we have the perfect search tool for candidates yet, and it misses too many candidates. Also for client outreach, nah, not really. I think what AI is good for is like helping with administrative tasks, like the things that we don't want to do and are very labor intensive. So we can focus on the human touch and what we're good at, and our knowledge is used. And I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Same. Agreed. I mean, surely there will be new tools and new tools and new tools, but I agree with you. The system is still quite flawed. And that's why I'm also a little bit, what I do is really old fashioned. I go sometimes through like a manual list that I have of candidates that I know, or I go through my own LinkedIn network and I'm like, who do I know? Because I follow them through their careers that could be perfect, because I just don't want to miss out on the candidates that I know are good just because I have done this search and think this is everything. It's just a piece of the process, but definitely it doesn't cover everything.
No, and how good is it if you've known a candidate for 10 years and you're able to work with them finally? Then you know that they're good and they do what they say, and that's the best reference you can have.
Yeah, agreed. And I think ultimately one of the things that I always tell my clients as well is sometimes you will get lots of response, or you get a lot of candidates through maybe using these tools or going through LinkedIn and doing it yourself. But there's also a huge difference between a candidate that is meh, will do the job and maybe stays 2 years, and that one candidate that is like really amazing and will not just stay 2 years, but 5 years, and really adds a lot of performance to the team, perfect culture fit, becomes a leader. I mean, the difference between those two type of candidates is huge. And so I think sometimes even when you listen to the big guys like Stephen Bartlett and all the big CEOs, they always say the team you're building is 80% of the success. It's not about the qualities of the people per se and what they do technically, but the culture you build and the team of people that you surround yourself with are the one key that makes a company successful. And I think sometimes the value of that is difficult to see when you just recruit. But I think if you think about that, obviously recruiting becomes much more valuable as well.
No, absolutely. And AI is self-learning. It's filling itself, but I think it will take many years for them to think like us and to see if someone fits the team and knows all the other persons in the team and personalities and what suits them. So do you see AI as a risk for your own for your business or your job?
I don't think so. I mean, definitely yes, in terms of there will be a lot of clients that don't see the benefit anymore working with recruiters, which we see sometimes now as well, right? If they can get candidates themselves, I agree. Like, why would you pay me to get another candidate? Unless you can already prove that candidate is so much better, but that's something you just need to see like over time, right? At the same time, I think when there will be more and more and more AI and less personal relationship, people will automatically feel that they want to go back to that human side, because that's what people then start to miss, right? So I think ultimately they will start valuing the smaller, more human-based agencies again, or they do it already. But I think there will definitely be a shift back where we will become a little bit more important rather than less important for a certain amount of candidates and clients in the market. And I think you said it as well, like, so you get sometimes so many CVs now that I think a lot of times it is also just time saving for companies to outsource it with us. Because if you have to go through 1,000 CVs and they all look super slick because they've all been, they've gone through their own IA, well, then it's going to cost you days and days and days to understand the difference between good and bad. And this is also something that we could do for them, of course.
Yeah. So key takeaways from this conversation, because we both love to talk. But if for candidates, again, you said build on your personal network, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's everything. Like I would also say there's lots of events. There's a lot of like little meetups of business leaders. Speak to a lot of recruiters. I mean, I never say to a candidate, work with me exclusively, because that's complete BS. Just speak to everyone, because everyone have their own portfolio and relationships, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then again, don't apply en masse, because it's also doesn't, like, a lot of people want to know why you want to work for them, right? So if you don't have a clue and you just apply for every job, and you get a first question like, why this role, and you don't even remember which of the 100 roles it was, it's not going to work. You need to be really specific why you want to work for a company, because that's what people really love. So be specific, just go through LinkedIn, but then send that one little short personal message to say, hey, I just applied for this role, would love to speak to you. Definitely don't do the 6 alinea perfect introduction.
No.
Because that's never going to work for us.
No. And for people working on the corporate recruitment side, what would you, because they get a lot of CVs as well. I say at first use transcription tools when interviewing. That is my advice. What would you recommend to them as well?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. Yeah, depends on what they're looking for, of course, but definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess what they're doing is also filtering out purely on, how do you say it? I can imagine that a corporate recruiter, just for the sake of time, literally only reviews the CVs that went through the LinkedIn loophole. So yeah, they probably miss out on a lot of really good people. And I know this because I speak to those candidates and they say, I've applied for this role. And I'm like, but that's like perfect for you. And then they're like, no, I didn't even get an interview. And so probably there was a keyword missing here and there. So I don't know how they would go about it, because they probably have 10 roles and they have a lot of time pressure. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I think they will miss out on great candidates. But again, yeah, what is the solution there? What do you think?
Yeah, well, maybe also there, like be work a bit more like an agency recruiter, and or work with a specialized agency when a role has a lot of applicants as well, because we're able to only focus on that, and we don't have that time pressure of 20 hiring managers all wanting the perfect candidate. So maybe do what you're really good at, and for the other ones, use specialized agencies. That's in our best interest.
That would be my takeaway.
Yeah.
Agreed, Marinka. That sounds great.
Good. Yeah. No, yeah, it was a pleasure having this conversation. Thank you so much, Elly.
And maybe in a year's time we'll think about it completely different. Like, let's see what happens. I mean, the market changes so quickly. We might also be using a billion tools by then, but I'm really curious to see how this will develop.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Have a good Hemelvaartsdag, because we're actually doing this podcast on our day off, on
our off
Hemelvaartsdag.
days.
Yay!
Always at work.
Always at work. That's the reality of being an entrepreneur. But thank you so much, and have
a great Hemelvaart. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.